You're watching Hip Hop Flash, exposing the truth behind hip hop's biggest moments. Let's go!
The man who just won Best Hip Hop Artist at the 2026 BET Awards wasn't even in the building to accept it, and somehow that's the part that has an entire fan base melting down in real time on every timeline you can scroll through right now. Kendrick Lamar didn't show up, didn't post about it, didn't tweet, didn't acknowledge it, and the Drake stans are treating that empty seat like it's proof of a conspiracy that runs from the BET Voting Academy all the way down to the streaming algorithms. They're calling it a DEI win. They're calling it a race scam. They're calling it a handout for a rapper who supposedly hasn't done anything in 2 years, which is a wild sentence to type about the guy who just broke the record for the highest grossing rap tour of all time, headlined the most watched Super Bowl halftime show ever recorded, and held the longest-running #1 on the Billboard rap charts during the exact eligibility window this award was measuring. And I need you to understand something before we go any further, because the layer underneath this crash out is the part nobody is saying out loud. This isn't really about an award. This is about a fan base watching their guy get lapped so badly that the only way to survive emotionally is to burn down the entire scoreboard. And when we get to the third act of this video, I'm going to show you the specific pattern these accounts are running. The same 3 talking points, the same 3 deflections, the same 3 coping mechanisms. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. So here's where we actually are. The 2026 BET Awards handed Kendrick Lamar the Best Male Hip Hop Artist trophy. Not Best Album, not Best Song, not Best Rap Performance, Best Artist, meaning the human being who most defined the genre during the eligibility cycle. That cycle, according to BET's own published rules, ran from March 16, 2025 through March 15, 2026. And inside that 12-month window, Kendrick Lamar did the following. He continued rolling out the GNX album cycle that dropped in late 2024. He headlined the Super Bowl LIX halftime show in February 2025 that pulled in over 133 million viewers, according to Nielsen. And he ran the Grand National Tour with SZA that Billboard Box Score reported grossed north of $200 million, making it the highest-grossing rap tour in recorded history. He also held Luther on the Billboard Hot 100 for a run that made it one of the longest-charting rap collaborations of the decade. That's not a resume, that's a case file. And the response from the other side of the aisle has been to log on to Twitter and X and Instagram and pretend none of it happened. Academics, the reactionary commentator who has built an entire brand on being anti-Kendrick, went on a stream and said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he's actually glad Kendrick keeps winning these awards because it proves the award shows are rigged. Rigged for who, exactly? For the guy who wasn't in the room, didn't lobby, didn't campaign, and didn't even acknowledge the win? And this, to me, is the most telling part of the whole thing. The villains of this story are so committed to the bit that they've now argued themselves into a corner where the actual dominant artist of the year is the one being called the industry plant. Does everybody understand how upside down that logic is? The guy touring stadiums off his own catalog is the plant, and the guy who reportedly needs the whole machine behind him to stay relevant is the underdog. Make that make sense. Let's start with the surface layer, because before we get into the industry side analysis, we need to look at what these stans are actually posting in public, in their own words, on their own accounts. The first exhibit is the video that started making the rounds within an hour of the BET announcement, the one where a commentator known online for his contrarian Kendrick takes goes on a rant claiming the award is meaningless, then, in the same breath, says Kendrick didn't deserve it. Both of those things cannot be true. If the award is meaningless, why does it matter who won it? If it does matter who won it, then it isn't meaningless. This is the first tell of a coping fan base. The argument has to contradict itself just to survive contact with the scoreboard. The clip has been reposted across multiple hip-hop commentary accounts, and every single reply section looks identical. Same 3 talking points, same 3 deflections, every single time. Exhibit 2 is the Joe Budden adjacent take that circulated on X within about 6 hours of the ceremony, where a well-known reaction personality argued that Kendrick should personally hand the award back because he wasn't the most active rapper of the year. Not the most successful, not the most impactful, the most active, as in released the most units of new music, which is a metric that appears exactly nowhere in the BET criteria. The category is Best Male Hip-Hop Artist, not Most Prolific, not Most Productive, not Most Posting. Artist. And when your entire argument requires inventing a new criterion that the award doesn't actually use, you are not making an argument, you are making excuses. This clip alone pulled over 2 million views across platforms in under 24 hours, and the ratio in the replies tells you everything about how the broader hip-hop community is receiving it. Exhibit 3, and this is the one that broke my brain a little bit, the tweet from a Drake stan account with a checkmark and over 400,000 followers calling Kendrick, and I quote loosely because I'm not putting the exact slur on camera, the DEI rapper of hip-hop. A black man winning a black music award at a black network being called a diversity hire in the genre that black people invented. I had to read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. And this account is not some anonymous burner. This is a verified commentary page with real reach. That tweet was up for over 18 hours before it was deleted, and by then the screenshots were already immortalized. This is what the crash out looks like when the arguments have completely run out. You stop making sense, you stop pretending to have logic, and you just start swinging at whatever moves.
And oh, do I have more. Because the surface-level tweets are just the appetizer. The Drake stans really are not gonna like what comes next. Because in the next section, we're getting into the insider reactions. The artists in Drake's own orbit who are quietly starting to distance themselves. The deleted posts, the podcast statements that have been sitting in plain sight, and the one specific concert moment from the Grand National Tour that these accounts are pretending never happened. Buckle in. The cultural layer is where this story goes from embarrassing to revealing, because it's not just anonymous stan accounts anymore. Freddie Gibbs, on a recent episode of his podcast Rotation, made an offhand comment about the state of rappers who need Twitter armies to defend their catalog. And while he didn't name names, the timing of the clip going viral the same week as the BET fallout was not an accident. Freddie has been quietly on the right side of this narrative for a while, and hip-hop Twitter caught the reference immediately. That clip has now been reposted onto Kendrick fan pages with millions of combined impressions, and the Drake side has had zero coherent response to it. Silence, in this case, is evidence. The second piece of cultural evidence is the pattern of deleted posts. According to screenshots archived by multiple hip-hop news pages, including Hip Hop DX and Wrap Up adjacent accounts, at least 4 verified commentary personalities who initially posted celebratory or neutral responses to the BET win quietly took those posts down within 24 hours after backlash from the Drake stan community. Now, I want to be fair here. I cannot independently confirm every single one of those deletions, and some of them may have been for unrelated reasons, but the pattern is too consistent to ignore. When you have that many neutral takes disappearing in the same window, that's not coincidence. That's pressure. That's a fan base actively working to police the narrative in real time. And this is where I have to acknowledge a counterpoint, because I want to be honest with you. Some of the pushback against the BET win has come from legitimate hip-hop heads who genuinely believe artists like Don Toliver or J.I.D. had career years and deserved consideration. That's a fair conversation to have. Don Toliver's project was excellent, but here's where that argument falls apart. Don Toliver's album dropped in January 2026, with roughly 2 months of eligibility left in the cycle. Kendrick had 12. When you compare a 2-month run against a 12-month generational run that includes the biggest halftime show in television history, the conversation ends itself. The third piece of cultural evidence is the concert moment nobody in the Drake camp wants to talk about. During one of the final Grand National Tour dates, when Kendrick performed Not Like Us, the crowd reaction, reported on by multiple concert review outlets and captured in dozens of viral clips, was described as the loudest single-song pop of the tour. Not one of the loudest, the loudest. In a stadium in 2025 for a song that supposedly, according to the stands, has already been forgotten. If it's been forgotten, why did 70,000 people scream every word back? That is not the sound of a forgotten record. That is the sound of a cultural verdict, and that verdict was delivered in public, on tape, in front of the entire genre. Everything that has happened since, the BET win, the streaming numbers, the tour grosses, is just paperwork being filed to make it official. Now here is where this story gets bigger than one award and one fan base. Because if you only look at the surface, you see a bunch of upset stans crashing out on the timeline. But if you look at what's underneath, you see something a lot more structural. And I want to shift gears here, because what I'm about to walk you through is not about music. It's about how the machine actually works. Here is where we need to stop talking about music and start talking about business, because the reason this fan base is melting down harder than any previous award cycle is not really about Kendrick. It's about what Kendrick's dominance is exposing about the entire ecosystem that a certain other artist depends on. And there are two systemic angles here that both lead to the same conclusion. The first angle is the streaming and touring economy. In the modern industry, chart performance is a short-term metric. Anyone with a major label push and playlist real estate can debut at #1. What you cannot fake is a stadium tour. You cannot fake $200 million in
verified box office. You cannot fake a Nielsen-verified Super Bowl audience of 133 million people. Those are third-party audited numbers reported by outlets like Billboard Box Score, Pollstar, and Nielsen, companies whose entire business model depends on those numbers being accurate. When Kendrick Lamar walked away from the 2025 calendar year with the highest-grossing rap tour in history, that wasn't a marketing win. That was a market verdict. A stadium filling up is people voting with money out of their own pockets. And this is where the coping narrative from the Drake side collapses under its own weight, because the same accounts that spent 2023 and 2024 bragging about streaming numbers as the ultimate metric of success are suddenly, in 2025 and 2026, telling you that streaming numbers don't matter, tour numbers don't matter, and awards don't matter. Everything that used to be the scoreboard has been declared meaningless the moment their guy stopped winning on it. That is not analysis. That is grief management dressed up as commentary. The second angle is the media manufacturing layer, and this is the part these commentary accounts really don't want you to look at closely. There is a documented ecosystem of hip-hop commentary channels, I'm not going to name every one of them, but you know the ones, that appear to move in coordinated cycles on specific narratives. When a Kendrick win happens, the same 3 talking points appear on the same day across dozens of channels. When a Drake milestone happens, the same 3 defensive framings appear across the same channels. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is what the pattern looks like when you actually chart the timing of the uploads and the language of the thumbnails. It is either an incredibly consistent coincidence, or it is exactly what it appears to be, a manufactured commentary layer designed to protect one specific artist's public perception at all costs. And when that ecosystem gets hit with a piece of undeniable evidence, like a BET win in a landslide year, the entire structure has to work overtime to spin it. That is what you're watching in real time. That is why every single Stan account is running the same 3 talking points, because they were handed the same 3 talking points. And once you see the manufacturing layer, you cannot unsee it. Every reactionary take suddenly makes sense not as independent analysis, but as coordinated damage control. The DEI framing? Damage control. The "he didn't drop anything" line? Damage control. The "awards are meaningless" pivot? Damage control. It is the same 3 deflections rotating on a schedule dressed up in different avatars.
So here is the truth bomb, and I want you to sit with this one. What the 2026 BET Awards actually revealed is not that Kendrick Lamar is the best rapper alive. The culture already decided that in the summer of 2024. What this award revealed is that the entire commentary infrastructure built around defending Drake's legacy is now operating at a documented loss. It is losing arguments in real time, losing engagement to Kendrick fan pages, losing credibility with neutral hip-hop fans, and most importantly, losing the actual younger audience that determines what rap looks like for the next decade. And here is the part that should really land. Allegedly, according to reporting from industry-adjacent newsletters and multiple insider accounts, there are conversations happening right now inside major labels about whether the current model of manufactured commentary is even generating positive returns anymore, or whether it has become a net liability that is actively accelerating the decline it was designed to prevent. I want to be clear, that specific claim is being reported by industry sources and has not been officially confirmed by any label. But if even a portion of it is accurate, we are watching the beginning of the end of an era. Not the end of Drake necessarily, but the end of the machine that has been propping up a very specific version of Drake's public narrative for the last 3 years. And when that machine breaks, the numbers underneath it, the real, audited, third-party numbers, are going to tell a very different story than the one the timeline has been sold. That is the reckoning. That is what these stands are actually crashing out about. Not the award. The award is just the receipt. And through it all, the hero of this story has not tweeted once. Kendrick Lamar did not attend the ceremony. He did not release a statement. He did not lobby, did not campaign, did not perform reaction content, did not respond to the discourse. He did what he has done for the last 3 years, which is nothing publicly, while everything privately continues to move in his favor. That is the difference between an artist and a personality. The artist lets the work argue for him. And when the work is a Super Bowl halftime show watched by 133 million people, a tour that grosses over $200 million, a chart run that rewrote the rap record books, and a cultural moment that ended a 15-year rivalry in one summer, the work does not need any help. Remember when the stands said "Not Like Us" would be forgotten by Christmas? It is now the loudest song in every stadium in America. Remember when they said the Super Bowl booking was a mistake? It became the most watched halftime show ever recorded. Remember when they said the awards would never come? He just won the biggest hip-hop artist award at the blackest network in America, and he didn't even have to be in the room. Discipline, in the long run, always beats noise. That is the entire lesson of this story in one sentence. The guy who talks the least ends up with the most to show for it, and the guy whose fan base spends every day defending his honor online ends up needing more defense every month. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern, and this fan base is watching the pattern complete itself in real time, which is exactly why the crash out has hit terminal velocity this week. But this is only the start, and I mean that literally, because there are 2 specific developments coming down the pipe that are going to make this week's BET meltdown look like a warm-up. The first is the Grammy cycle, which begins its next nomination window in the coming weeks, and every early industry projection I have seen suggests Kendrick is positioned for another dominant showing based on the same eligibility metrics. The second is a reported new project rollout that has been whispered about across multiple industry newsletters, and if even half of what is being teased turns out to be accurate, the conversation we're having right now is going to look quaint by spring. If you want to be here when both of those stories break, and trust me, you want to be here, the subscribe button is right there. Hit it. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next drop. Drop your take in the comments and tell me which coping talking point you have seen the most this week, because I read every single one and the pattern recognition in that comment section has been elite lately. And before you click off, the next video I want you to watch is the one where I break down the specific 3-account network that appears to be coordinating the anti-Kendrick narrative across YouTube. I named the accounts, I laid out the time timing, and I showed the receipts. It is one of the most watched breakdowns on this channel, and it will change how you scroll hip-hop commentary forever. Click it now. I'll see you in the next one.